I'm Rad Wizard Ralph, and this is the Radical Roundup for Week 2 of the Earth Cup. Sit tight, folks, we've got some exciting games on this one, plenty of touchdowns to go around. Not the most exciting match, that one. The Chaos team struggled to reach the Skinks, and struggled to get good hits on them whenever they did. The story of the game was late in the second half, where Batra, a skink, dodged away from 5 punches in very quick succession before finally being brought down by the enigmatic Susan. The only really notable event was the injuring of Crush Spider. Nothing permanent, but the warrior will be out for a game to recover, which makes him and his crucial guarding training unavailable for the dwarf matchup. A touchback kicked this game off, but more importantly for the halflings, a Black Orc injury was also on the cards in the opening plays. He'll be out for at least next game with that blow. With Deeproot, practically a player on the Sausage Suckers at this point, since he's recruited so often, the Orcs found it hard to get through the triple tree with their usual tactics. Good adaptation from Coach Blue saw them drag away 2 of the trees to isolate Hot Dog and take him down, giving them a path down the side of the pitch. With halflings dropping left and right, and another tree felled, it was elementary for Gretchen to walk the ball into the end zone for a touchdown. That was the easier part for them, though. Now they had to stop the halflings from scoring without starting with the ball. They managed to stop the halflings in a small amount of time before halftime due to pure luck and not much else. Frankfurter snaps up the ball with the kickoff, takes it to Haggis, who is chucked halfway across the field by Pepperoni, but fails to stick the landing, dropping the ball. This would happen almost verbatim again at the start of the second half. You can't call the halflings not tenacious, that's for sure. With the halflings and the ball thus out of position, and with a good screen of whatever teammates she had brave enough to stand next to the trees, Martha made a solo run down the flank to grab the Orc's second touchdown, only interacting with a single halfling on the way that she shrugged off with ease. This meant another kickoff, and you know what that means, folks. More thrown halflings! And, as you might anticipate from Pepperoni's track record this game, it was another fail. And another injury. Seems like 3rd time's not the charm here. But I'll be damned if it stopped them from trying again with the very next play. And what do you know? 4th time was the charm, it seems. 2-1 is the scoreline. Interestingly, this means the halflings never held the ball at the end of a play, always either dropping it or scoring, so they register on our chart with a whopping 0% possession of the ball. Impressive. Coach Blue will be happy with 2 wins from 2 to start off the round robin, even if they haven't been extremely convincing wins. We had an interesting start to this one. Bottle, a skink, had lent his services to the Kislev team against his own race. Goodness knows how much he had to get paid for that one, but then again, all's fair in Love and Blood Bowl. Coach Ditka was almost instantly back to his cage-breaking antics, with a nasty blow onto Mundy, who fans worried was dead until the team's apothecary rushed onto the scene and pronounced him fit to play with a little rest. Cheers were heard from the crowd as he took a breather in the sub-box. He's a fan favourite after all. Either way, the Kislevites were more than happy to use the chaos as a distraction to nab the ball, bounding their way all the way to the Lizards' end zone for a very early touchdown, especially since they didn't even start with the ball. They weren't interested in lowering the tempo either. They started the next kickoff with a surprise blitz, positioning themselves to try and take the ball straight off the Lizards again, but a fumble on the catch gave the poor reptiles a breather. Even that didn't last long, though. Mundy was barely back on the field and picking up the ball before he had a fist in his face again, and the Kislevites were bounding towards the end zone. This made the Lizards angry, however. All the crowd saw for the next play was a flurry of claws before the smoke cleared. The ball was dispossessed, with 2 Northmen being carried away on stretchers. They nearly scored again despite this, though. If it weren't for an inaccurate pass, it'd be 2-0 at the halfway mark. As it stood, the Lizards had hope. They hadn't really been able to put together a good play up until now, constantly getting dispossessed, but their opposition was starting to run out of players. They had a 2-man advantage going into the half, and any removal after now would only extend it, and increase their chances at an equaliser. With a stroke of luck and some poor play from Bottle, living up to his name, at the start of the second half, the Lizards suddenly had their shot at the ball. Uter of the Sun easily put the ball carrier's head on the ground, stunning him and knocking the ball free. They couldn't retrieve it, but the pressure was mounting on the Kislevites, pushing them further and further back into their own half until they made a desperation leap play. This wouldn't work out as well as hoped, however, as Uther of the Sun hunted down the new ball carrier, easily knocking him to the ground just like the last one, and this time the ball was in a much more favourable position. With the number of Kislev players remaining on the field rapidly dwindling, there wasn't enough people to stop Otel from doing a long run down the pitch to square away the game. Despite the best attempts of Coach Ditka, there wasn't enough time for the Kislevites to draw ahead again, despite possession of the ball, so that was how the game ended, 1-1. Another exciting game, though. This Kislev team has been a welcome and exciting addition to the league. Bravo to them for that. We were straight into the slugging when this match started, as you can see from the score line. Both teams lined up, chomping at the bit to get at each other, and trading blows not long after. The undead drew first blood with an injury onto a dwarven blitzer, but it was accompanied by a crucial KO onto a mummy. A couple of other important removals and stuns gave the dwarven cage the time it needed to push up the flank, resulting in a first-half lead for the dwarves. Obviously, it took them a while to get up there on those little legs, so it was near the end of the first half. This wasn't before they decided that some of the skeletons weren't dead enough for their liking. Tom the Restless won't be restless anymore, that's for sure. Witty one-liners like that are why I get paid the big bucks, baby. The undead had a chance to recover the scoreline before the second half, however, but a positioning error and some slips on the field meant that the ball was dropped tantalizingly close, actually in the end zone. The ref blew his half-time whistle, however, before the touchdown could be completed. The second half advance was halted through similar means. The mummy exerted far too much effort standing up, and was promptly knocked right back down again, handing the advantage to the dwarves. This put Thick in a position to make a supreme diving tackle, knocking the ball out of the ghoul's hands. A final few KOs on the undead would round out the game. With no one left on the pitch to play, Coach Tony was forced to concede the match. These dwarves are looking like a terror, taking down 2 playoff contenders from last round robin in their first 2 games, and pretty convincingly too. If I were the league admins, I'd be checking their armour for illegal modifications, because they never seem to end up off the pitch, or maybe these dwarves are just thicker than most. The pressure was instantly on for this match. The Chaos Dwarves were out to prove to their coach that they were good enough, and he didn't need to pull them out of the league after the death of their old captain, Gordon Ramsay. It didn't start off great. A fumble straight away from new member of the team Horsemeat handed the advantage over to the defending champions, although there wasn't much they could do with it. The Chaos Dwarves were still firmly in control of the ball, and managed to get it down one of the flanks with relative ease, the Earl of Slamwich still being one of the best players in the league after all. This meant that, with a fatal slip-up from the humans in the form of a failed going for it, he could shrug off the last challenge and score the first touchdown of the match. The human offense after that was slow. It's always hard to get through the brawlers that make up the dwarf line. There did come a point where the dwarves could prove themselves, though, leaping up to make an interception on Christian's dangerous pass into the backfield. It's amazing that the dwarf could even reach that high with those stubby little legs. This nullified the offense until half-time, where the humans had a second shot. It looked like they'd made an early breakthrough this time, at least, but the Earl was back again with a crucial blitz. It's good he's a centaur, because he's really carrying the team on his back. This left the ball in a huge scrum of players. It was up in the air whether it'd move at all after that. By some miracle of Nuffle it got out, though, which meant something interesting could actually happen in the game. A crucial fumble on a long pass down the field nullified a third offense from the humans, and then another fail to pick up the ball nullified a fourth. A fifth was mounted in the dying seconds of the game, but you'll never guess it, a second interception. It's all drama here at the Chaos Dwarf Stadium as the players celebrate. Their stellar individual performances certainly showing Coach Saffron he made the right choice letting them keep playing, with the Earl of Slamwich being a worthy successor to wear the captain's armband. On the flip side, Coach Josh will not be pleased with his players. They failed almost everything that was asked of them, from running far to blocking to throwing to even simply picking up the ball. There'll be disciplined training in the coming week, that's for sure, and I don't envy their next opponents. Oh dear. I didn't even know Nurgle's rot could affect videotape, but I suppose I shouldn't be surprised by those putrid players anymore. I suppose I could make up highlights? A critical match down here at the... what stadium was it? The Burger King. It started off with, probably with Jim from accounting crunching some Nurgle's spines like he crunches the numbers on Microsoft Excel, followed up by an astounding run from the Goblin Tacnet to score the first touchdown of the match. Yes, and then on the return, Nurgle was stopped by some terrible ball handling, but managed to score some good injuries on the Orcs. Second half was more of the same, with Nurgle being dispossessed by some amazing Goblin moves as per usual, as if we could expect anything else from the Goblin himself. Is he even killable? Certainly not in this match, as he took home the second touchdown for a 2-0 win. Was that convincing? Probably. Sounds good. As any good Goblin game goes, this one started off as a mess. The very first action of the game was a completely failed block that somehow ended in an injury, and it didn't get better from there. Coach Kath probably needs to get her training regime in order for her chainsaws, because both of them were a complete failure this game. One chopped himself up, and the other managed to not even succeed on running down the pitch. Seems like those little legs are a hindrance sometimes. This mess of a start was easily capitalised upon by the Elves, however. Their MVP and Captain Harpshooter was in position for the first touchdown of the game. After play resumed, it almost seemed like we'd be in for at least a semi-normal game from here, for a small passage of play until Coach Kath called a throw play. Unfortunately for her, Grok isn't well known for his intelligence, and the complex instructions he was receiving, that is, throw the goblin but don't eat him, was much too different to his normal instructions of punch. And he got confused. This wasn't capitalised upon by the Wood Elves, however. As a liar, turns out he lied to his coach when he said he was competent, and fails a block on just a lowly goblin. What a fool! It wouldn't get any better for him either. Being on the floor meant he was bullied all the way up to half-time by the foul-happy goblins, being constantly used as a trampoline, and stunned all the way up to the half-time whistle. Thanks to their beating at the hands of the humans last week, there was a severe lack of goblins here for this game. Despite the Wood Elves not really bruising that many goblins, at the start of this half, there were only the trolls and 3 goblins left. Coach Kath must have given Grok a half-time pep talk, as she tries the same play once more, calling him to throw the goblin with the ball. He's worked it out too, picking up the goblin and dropping him instantly. At least he tried. The landing was failed as well, although the muscle was there to pick up the scraps and grab the ball. The Wood Elves wouldn't have any of that, though. With a very, very well set-up team play that involved a blitz on the ball carrier, a quick grab of the ball and an equally quick pass-off to Harpshooter, who was sitting inside a cage already, all before the goblins could react. The speed of these elves is surely terrifying for a coach to plan for. That being said, if any of you saw last week's goblin match, you know cages mean nothing to them as they began sprinting into position. Too fast, in fact, and they fall over trying to make the play. It would have been a hero moment for sure, but instead just gives the elves time to set up Harpshooter for a quick block into the second touchdown of the match. You know what they say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But you have to wonder if that goes the other way. If it is broke, you should probably fix it. Coach Kath disagrees, though. Another throw play is attempted and works. Well, about as well as you'd expect. The elves took my first piece of wisdom except for the second. A similar blitz play to the last drive ended with them swooping the ball out from under the troll's nose and passing it off to Harpshooter. And we all know how that ends at this point. It wasn't long before he was in his opponent's end zone again, and equally before we're back at the line for another kickoff. Annoyed at their pounding in terms of the score, the goblins set out to foul and punch their way through as many elves as possible. The unfortunate free agent that the elves picked up to fill out their roster was beaten half to death. This focus meant the Harpshooter was free for like half a second, and at this point, well, as soon as you look away, he's practically already in the end zone. You know what this calls for? Something completely different. No, wait, a Harpshooter highlight reel. I'm starting to feel a bit woozy now. Maybe I shouldn't have touched that Nurgle-infected videotape. Either way, I've been Rad Wizard Ralph, and this was your Radical Roundup for the Earth Cup Week 2. Catch you next week,